Okay, welcome. Today we're in the third chapter of the Tanya, and we're going to give an introduction to Kabbalah. Today is called the Introduction to Kabbalah Day because we're going to need some introductions to really understand this chapter of Tanya, because it's very, very deep, and it starts to open up much bigger topics. As a prelude to all of this, Kabbalah is something that is so deep, is so profound. Whatever a person thinks they know, it's so much more than that. And real Kabbalah, like the verse says, that when it comes to big secrets, it's underneath your tongue. You don't really say them. So we're going to be saying some things, but other things just can't be said. Kabbalah is a secret language. It's a communication that either you kind of get it or not. You can't reveal everything. That's the nature of it. And in general, these things are so profound and they're so deep that they're much beyond us. One thing we also have to point out is everything we're learning about, especially in more mystical topics, is nothing physical. One of the biggest dangers that the Arizal and the subsequent students of the Arizal spoke about was what's called hisgashmus, which means to make something megusham, to make it physical. Like gashmias, to make it gashmias. To physicalize the ideas. We're talking about conceptual ideas, they're not physical ideas, so very important to keep that clear. When we talk about these things, we're going to be mentioning different topics. We're not talking about physical things. These are completely conceptual things. And therefore, we're going to keep reminding ourselves that. And this was a big part of the learning in Tzfat, in the beginning of how all of Kabbalah developed with the true masters, was a continual awareness that none of this is physical. Even though it seems that there's physical descriptions being given, it's not physical. It's just to give a bit of an understanding, because we relate to physical things, right? This is physicality here. But don't think for 1 second that we're talking about physical things, and don't think for 1 second, God forbid, that God is physical. He's not. So it's going to lead us to the question, so what's going on? It kind of looks like a physical world. I want to begin also with one of the questions of Aristotle. A famous question of Aristotle, which was, how does existence exist? Now, by the way, it used to be that people would really sit down and learn some Aristotle. Nowadays, you just say the word Aristotle. It's not, Rabbi, it's not, the screen's not moving quick enough, So hopefully, hold on tight for a little bit of real thinking. So Aristotle had a problem. He had a quandary. What was the quandary? The quandary was that where did existence come from? And I'll explain what he meant. Finite, i.e. this world, is a non-starter. What does that mean? Finite has to come from somewhere, but it can't create itself. Who tried to convince the world that he created himself? Pharaoh, Parai. Parai said, Li hayaor va'ani asisan. To me is the Nile, and I made myself. Oh, really, Pharaoh? Let's talk about that. What part of you made yourself? No, don't ask questions like that. That will, ruin the whole thing. Like the man behind the curtain. Don't look at the man behind the curtain. Oz! So, okay. Pharaoh tried to convince the world that he made himself, that he's finite. What's the proof that he's finite? Because he has a beginning and an end. Look, here's Pharaoh's head. Here's his arm. Is his arm his head? No, that's an arm, this is a head. Now let's look at more finite things. This table. How do I know this table is finite? Because it starts here and it ends here. finite means anything with definition. Even if you tell me, no, my thoughts are not finite, of course they are, because it's this thought and not another thought. Finite, which is the world that we see, doesn't start itself. It can't, because where does it come from? It's a non-starter. It can't create itself, because what created that? Where did it come from? Nothing is not finite. Where did the nothing come from? So even the evolutionists that want to talk about a Big Bang, a soup, the soup, right? Right, there was a soup, and then it evolved. So what's the first question you have to ask them? Where did the soup come from? Oh, the soup. Okay, so that's already maybe Big Bang. That's another direction. That's already a creation. It's something happened. You're forced to admit that the soup. Okay, I appreciate that you think that the soup turned into everything else. That can be a discussion, but don't think that an evolutionary belief contradicts a creation belief. They're skirting the issue. An evolutionary belief says we started with a soup and that it evolved, single-celled organisms, etc. Where did the soup come from? Okay? The soup is already something. So finite things, Aristotle looked around and he saw finite things. He understood that finite does not start itself. So what must he conclude? Where did finite come from? Infinite. Clear? It had to come from infinite. Infinite can create finite. But then he encountered another problem. What's the problem with Aristotle? If infinite is the reality, the most logical reality, because finite doesn't start itself, it must have come from somewhere, not something finite. It must have come from something infinite. Okay? If infinite exists, infinite does not allow finite to exist, because it's infinite. Infinity means no border, no definition. And if infinite exists, means that that's reality. Reality is infinite. So why do I have this experience that seems to be undeniable of physicality, of finiteness? Is infinite the reality? Aristotle concluded it must be the reality. It's the only logical answer. It's the only logical answer that infinity is the reality. However, finiteness is an undeniable experience that I have. So how do you have infinite and finite existing together? Finite should get swallowed up in the infinite. Infinity is logical. Finite reality is clearly what we observe. What is the solution to this, according to the Torah?
Finite is part of it.
We call that Kabbalah. Tzimtzum. Okay, this is already a very religious group here. We call that Kabbalah, we call that Tzimtzum. That essentially God is infinite, but he wanted to give that infinite to a creation, a relationship to a creation. But could the creation exist? Could finite exist in the face of infinite? What would happen? It should be swallowed up. When finite hits infinite, it just dissolves. Because infinite is limitless. There's no borders. There's nothing. So anything finite would just get obliterated in the infiniteness. One of the classic examples that's used in the Sfarim of how finite could exist and not just be obliterated is actually something that we relate to a lot. You ever tried to look at the sun in the middle of the day? I hope not, because it's, it'll hurt your eyes. You see, it's just too powerful. You can't. It's overwhelming. It overwhelms you. So what can a person do? He could put on a lens. He could put on either a dark glass, a polarization, and then if that's still too strong, he puts on another lens, another lens, another lens, another lens. another lens, until what?
Just darkness.
He can actually see it in a way that's not going to swallow him up. There's actually a relationship that could be had with this powerful source. Now, is the sun finite?
Yeah.
Of course it is. It's a sun and not a moon. It's that in the sky and not another ball of fire in the sky. It's that right there. It's not this table. It's not this phone. It's not this mask. It's that, and so it's finite. But it has certain qualities that are powerful. And that's why we use the sun as an analogy for God, but it's only an analogy. Don't think God is like a big sun. That's why I'm going to keep reminding us, there's nothing physical. We're using physical examples to understand Kabbalistic ideas. Hashem is compared to a sun, but strip away the physicality of it. He's compared to a sun because of very powerful energy that we can't handle unless there's a filtering of that energy. Yeah? This is called, like we said, Introduction to Kabbalah, whatever, 101. So Hashem is this infinite light. This infinite light, there could not be a creation that could appreciate and have a relationship with Hashem if there wasn't some filtration process. This filtration process of Hashem covering over is called tzimtzum, which it's even hard to translate that word, reducing the energy, reducing the light, constricting the light. Through tzimtzum, then there could be a relationship that could take place. How does God do tzimtzum in a Kabbalistic language? The answer is something called spheros, the 10 spheros. You should know the word spheros is such a holy word that certain great tzaddikim would not even say that word. They felt like they couldn't even say it. It's so spheros.
It's like Spheres Ha'omer.
Spheres Ha'omer is the same word. Spheres Ha'omer, which means also to count. A sphere, sphera, which also has the same word as sapir, something bright and brilliant. A sphere, a sapir, is like a gemstone that light is shining out of it. It's a type of, let's call it, again, this is not what a sphere is up there, but down here there's certain stones. It says that in Noah's Ark there was such a stone that was like, it was a stone but it had light coming out of it. Is that light could go into this stone, or it could be in the stone to begin with, and it could shine out and make something even more brilliant. Like, you ever seen the way that when the light hits a prism or a diamond? Now it's interesting, the diamond is in a certain way more beautiful than the original light. The light that comes out of the diamond is more beautiful. So Hashem, if you could imagine, is this infinite light, and He's shining it into these 10 spheres. Each one of them has a special energy, and is taking the light and is reducing it, but is also allowing out a certain color. By color, I don't mean, colors of the rainbow. It's also related to that, but I mean a certain energy, a certain experience, it's downgrading the light. It's going to be less light and less intense, and that's going to allow for more creation to happen, more finite creation to happen, creation that becomes more aware of itself. It still knows God in the higher worlds, but becomes more aware of actually something that could be seen as other than God. And as the light goes through, by light we always, to go back to the Hanukkah, all the Hanukkah learning we did, light means relationship. Light means an intimate experience with something on the inside. As that light goes through these 10 spheres, it produces and allows for creation to develop. Now, there's not only 10 of these spheres, there's many sets of 10. This is where it gets more complicated. And not only is there many sets of 10, there's 4 major categories of universes that within these universes have these 10. So everything is based on this system where it starts with Hashem's brilliant light. The light comes into creation. Because there's nothing physical here, my friends. It's conceptual. The light comes into creation, and there's the 10 energies, these spheres, that as the light moves through them, it creates more existence. And this goes on for a very long time. And by time, I don't mean something in space. And something like with a watch club. I mean a lot of downgrades where more creation is coming out in the higher worlds, angelic creations of different tiers, more and more angels, many, countless tiers and countless 4 categories, but countless worlds within them, until finally that light has been so constricted that it comes out and we can actually have a world of physicality. In this world where physicality can exist and not explode. In any of those higher worlds, there's no physicality. The light's too strong there. It's only spiritual worlds. And in the spiritual worlds, a lot of action there. A lot of action, my friends. After 120 years, we should all live until 120. We're going to see some crazy stuff going on. It's amazing up there. Legions, cadres, angels, angelic beings singing symphonies to Hashem. They all know about Hashem. They all know God. As the light gets more and more constricted and constricted and constricted and constricted, it allows for actually a physical world of you and I to exist. But it's so constricted that a person can actually believe there's no God. You can get your PhD on denying God.
Are we on that lowest level?
We're on the lowest level, yeah. But what's the benefit of that? That the light is so constricted?
Lowest free will?
You have free will.
And you can go up.
Yes. That's why we're the highest world, because we're in a world where the light's been so constricted that you can actually, we can exist, physicality can exist, but there's so much pull to lose yourself in the physicality, the nefesh bahamis, the animal soul, or to actually see past the lie of this world and choose spirituality, to choose Hashem, to become a PhD in God denial, or to become a PhD in relationship, deep connection to Hashem. And that's why the relationship is the most powerful here, because it's all based on very strong free will. How much free will do the angels have? Living in a world where God is so obvious to them. Minutia. Tiny. There may be some very small forms of free will for angels, but not real free will, like us. A person actually has the free will between choosing to go against God. To choose to believe that He doesn't even exist as He's giving you life and letting you talk the very words that are rebelling against Him. How does that happen, by the way? We explained in the last chapter. He's getting energy, acharayim. He's getting this life force thrown over the shoulders, so to speak. Again, nothing physical, just the energy is keeping him alive, but not in a way of warmth, of relationship. This is unbelievable. So, our introduction, 101, this is all going to set the stage to understand the 3rd chapter of Tanya, is that we have this system of worlds, and the light is coming through them, and it's getting downgraded. And you know what's something amazing? Here's what gets really good. Inside of you, you also have these 10 spheres, which means that you have a godly power also to create and run worlds. Because one way to sum up what the spheres are is a way to create and run a universe. That's what it is. It's the method in which God is creating through the tzimtzum a finite universe, and He's running it through these spheres. Well, you have those inside you as well, if you could tap into them. if you can tap into them, then you have the power to also run and create worlds. That's why also some of the secrets of creation, Hashem said, I have to hide them from the wicked people. The Or Agonos was a light that had to be hidden away. We're just introducing that you have to know that you're very powerful. You're very powerful. You have big, big power, big, big potential inside of you. And to the degree that we learn appropriately about what these are all about, these 10 spheres, as they also exist inside of me. Inside of me, we don't call them spheres, we call them midos, or powers. But they are a reflection. They're all an exact, they're coming from the spheres from the highest of worlds. And therefore, once we can tap into how to use, another word for this is called the tree of life. Tapping into how to use this system inside of me. We're going to draw one of those pictures like you probably saw in Tzfat. Everyone's got on their phones after they come out of Tzfat, like the tree of life, the sphere one. We're going to draw one of those. We're going to talk about it in a mature way to actually get an idea of how practically this can help you have a better life. Because if you know how to control these powers inside of you, instead of getting caught up in the distractions of this world, in the pettiness of this world, in the selfishness of this world, you can actually pull it the other direction, right? And once you're going in the direction of Hashem, you could do everything. You could heal the world, you could fix the world, you could heal poverty, you could heal everything. You could help another person, you can understand how people think and help them. And pick up your friend who's not doing well, and talk to your wife in the way that she needs to be spoken to, and help your kids and be there for them. Everything is there. If we can understand a system that is built in the same way that Hashem creates and runs all the worlds, we should be zeicher to this, Rabbi. So I can't wait to learn the third parak. It's going to be a wonderful journey together. Let's be zeicher to this. Amen. Have a wonderful night. A good Chodesh, everybody. A wonderful new month.